Alright guys, so here goes. This is my second part of the review of the 2009 WWE Draft, and at this point of the show, I'm a little perplexed. I don't think anything's really been expanded on. So I'm waiting, I'm waiting for something to happen to make it all seem logical. So next up, we have probably the most obvious plot development of the evening. Once it started, we had a singles match, Kofi Kingston for Raw against The Miz for ECW. The Miz, of course, one half of probably the best tag team in the WWE in years. And what are they going to do? They split them up. Now, I was kind of expecting this, but they've split them up in that The Miz loses this match, and this match was really sloppy. Really sloppy. And The Miz loses the match and is then drafted to Raw, separating him from John Morrison, and they have a hug, but then he actually hits Morrison with the reality check afterwards. But I would have thought that, The Miz being drafted to Raw and John Morrison being left to fester on ECW would be implying that The Miz is the one who's going to get the singles push, but John Morrison is the one who's the gifted singles wrestler. I've seen John Morrison drag a good match out of Batista, and nobody can do that. So this whole match to me illustrated that The Miz is not ready for that kind of serious singles push. I would have thought if you were going to draft Morrison to Raw or SmackDown, he'd be ready. The Miz, ECW is a good farming ground for development of singles wrestlers because there's a lot of wrestling involved on ECW. So what they're doing, I don't know, but I'm very confused. So now we're just left without a great tag team, and John Morrison's stuck on ECW. Anyway, next up we had the tri-branded Battle Royal, 15 men, 5 men per brand. Hilarious moment at the start of this when Tony Chimmel totally forgot the names of anybody on the ECW team. He obviously didn't have a clue who Ricky Ortiz was. Ricky Ortiz, Tyson Kidd, Finlay, Paul Burchill and Mark Henry for ECW. The Big Show, MVP. I can't even remember who all the people for Raw were, and I can't really remember. Mike Knox was there, and there were a bunch of people for SmackDown as well. Edge was one of them, and at the end of the match, you had Mark Henry, The Big Show, and Edge left, one person per brand, and they had a great bit, and I thought this was another opportunity to make ECW look equal, because they have to do that. They're marketing it as a separate brand, so they have to make it look decent. And they had this bit where Mark Henry had been hoisted over the top rope by The Big Show, and he was levering him over. It was one of the only things I've ever seen Mark Henry do that actually made him look like a really strong man, And the obvious thing to happen, the logical thing, was for Edge to run up from behind and weak both of them over and win the match, and they'd sort of, Mark Henry and The Big Show, would eliminate each other and each other's strength. But no, they just made ECW look crap again because they had The Big Show overpower Mark Henry and knockout punch him off, and then try to knockout punch Edge and just miss and fall over the top rope. So Edge won the tri-branded Battle Royal for the second year in a row. So 2 draft picks to SmackDown, and I was sitting there thinking, Christian, it's got to be Christian. Edge is in the middle of the ring. Christian, the brother storyline, it's so obvious, they've got to do it. Kane. Kane is one of those wrestlers that it just doesn't matter what brand he wrestles on. Kane's Kane. Kane hasn't been good in years. Kane hasn't been to the gym in years, and nobody cares what brand Kane is on. He's never going to win a title again. So that was very anticlimactic. And then Chris Jericho moved to SmackDown, which could be indicating that SmackDown could be headed to being a very good show for wrestling. CM Punk and Jericho at SmackDown, that's interesting. So we'll wait and see. Anyway, next out we had Christian for ECW, Shelton Benjamin for SmackDown. Shelton Benjamin never seems to win these days. These two guys are great. These two guys are probably the 2 best wrestlers in the WWE right now. If not the 2 best, 2 of the best. 2 of the most consistent. Good match, as you would expect. Indicative of how good the 2 of them are. Not as good as they can both be, but you can't expect everyone to be on fire all the time. Christian hits the kill switch and wins, so ECW gets its only pick of the evening. Only draft pick of the whole evening. ECW just looked like a joke tonight. They just made it look like a joke. You'd have thought they'd have at least tried. I just don't understand. And to make it look more of a joke, their draft pick is Vladimir Kozlov. I thought he was going to be a huge jobber, you know, a big guy that just loses all the time. If he'd stayed on SmackDown or moved to Raw, that would have been what happens, but he'll probably be ECW champion before long. And that's depressing. That's really, really depressing. So next, we had, this interested me, you had Matt Hardy against CM Punk. Matt Hardy's been drafted, Jeff Hardy hasn't, so surely that's that feud over, bizarrely, seeing as Jeff Hardy's looked dead weak at the end of this feud. Matt Hardy and CM Punk, decent-ish match. CM Punk streets ahead of Matt Hardy, but Matt Hardy's improving. Hit a nice piece of offense out the corner, like a front facebuster thing when CM Punk was trying to spring over the top of him, and that was nice. That was one of the nicest things I've seen Matt Hardy do in ages. And Jeff Hardy runs down out of nowhere and gets CM Punk disqualified by attacking Matt for no reason. It didn't seem to make any sense. In a kind of a roundabout way, he was helping Matt out. It was very, very bizarre. And then these two athletes, CM Punk's meant to be Mr. Money in the Bank, he's meant to be important, and the draft pick is Maurice is going to Raw, Divas Champion, which was tragic because it means they're keeping their two women's belts. Why unify the tag belts and not the women's belts? This is just absolutely the stupidest thing. Nobody cares that you switched Maurice and Melina. They're so far from being the two most over divas on your brands. I just don't get it. Melina's not holding that women's title for long, I can tell you that much. Next, you had the last draft pick match of the evening, and it wasn't even the main event. You had Chris Jericho, skilled wrestler, face Tommy Dreamer. When is Jericho, hopefully this is going to be the end, when is Jericho going to have to stop being put up against dinosaurs that can't do anything? There was a point of this match, and it was absolutely hilarious. Matt Striker, you know, trying to put over his brand, said something about, some people consider Tommy Dreamer an ECW legend. And Todd Grisham for SmackDown says, if Tommy Dreamer's a legend, so's the Brooklyn Brawler, the most notorious jobber of all time. And Matt Striker's like, oh, because that's harsh. And Jim Ross is just like, I would agree with that. So basically they were all just sat there saying, Tommy Dreamer is shit. He's shit and rubbish and a joke. And it just was ridiculous. Tommy Dreamer lost after a code breaker. So you got your last draft pick of the evening. And I was thinking, it's got to be Christian to SmackDown. Come on. But no, Rey Mysterio, which makes sense because that means there's the middle tier belt have swapped over. But the two world champions are now both on Raw. So CM Punk's on SmackDown. So the Money in the Bank thing is going to have to rectify the draft again. I reckon it seems fairly obvious to me that Randy Orton's going to win the WWE Championship at Backlash, and CM Punk's going to charge down to the ring and Money in the Bank it off him. I could be wrong, but that seemed very, very likely, unless they turn CM Punk heel. Or maybe Edge could win it and CM Punk could take it off him. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But I don't think it'll be long before CM Punk has the title anyway. But the draft, very perplexing. But I don't really want to comment until after the supplemental draft, because that's really when it fleshes out. There'll be lots of mid-carders moved around. It'll be interesting. I reckon R-Truth will move. William Regal will probably move to ECW. I'm looking forward to that. But I was very disappointed with the main draft this year. Finally, we had the main event. I'm not going to talk about it for very long at all. Priceless against Triple H, Shane McMahon and Batista. Opened with, I forget which member of Priceless it was, but Shane McMahon beating the shit out of them. The only person that had any offence against them on the three-man team was Triple H. The highlight of the match was Ted DiBiase hit a picture-perfect dropkick. The most beautiful dropkick I've seen in years. Fantastic. Which is something I never thought I'd associate with Ted DiBiase. Fantastic. But the whole thing played out, and the three men couldn't get along and kept breaking up each other's covers because they all wanted their singles match with Randy Orton next week. It would have been logical to have Priceless capitalise on this sometimes, but no, they just put Triple H over again. So I don't really want to see a rematch of their WrestleMania singles bout because it was one of the worst main events I've ever seen in my life. But no, we're getting a rematch of that next week on Raw. And I'm not looking forward to it. Triple H, Randy Orton again at the rate Triple H has been going, but it just goes to show that Triple H's disgusting amount of disproportionate screen time is not going to end anytime soon. Thanks for watching. Rate, comment, subscribe. Please let me know what you think. This is your show, and I hope you enjoyed it.